Hey guys, it's Matt and I'm here with Mackenzie, and today we're going to work on restoring the soft tissue in the cervical spine. So for today's video we're going to need a set of therapy balls or tennis balls, lacrosse balls possibly if you have them at home, and a yoga block. So grab those two things and let's get started. First, we're going to start with our therapy balls. So if you have tennis balls or if you have 2 lacrosse balls, whatever works best. And preferably if you have a little bag to put them in, or if you can throw them in some sort of sock or pillowcase or something. And we want to create this peanut shape. So sometimes I even see folks tape them together. So we're going to start with our 2 therapy balls and we're going to lay on our back. And basically they're going to go right underneath the skull. So you kind of poke down the back of the head, you'll feel where the base of the occiput kind of ends, and you'll feel where the soft tissue starts. And the ball is really going to rest right underneath there. So what we're going to get here is a little bit of cervical distraction as we lay on our back. So go ahead and make your way down in a lying position. The balls are going to kind of rest right underneath that little bony prominence. Arms can be nice and relaxed down at your side. Feet can relax. And we're just going to take about 10 breaths here. This area is a pretty common spot where we generate a lot of cervical tension headaches. So if we sit for long periods of day, or if we stare down at a desk, often these little muscles at the base of the neck are under a lot of tension. So the 2 therapy balls just kind of give us a little bit of distraction in that area and allow those muscles to relax.
The suboccipital muscles are directly correlated with your eyes. So I find if I stared at something for a really long time and I get a tension headache, if I do this release, it helps relieve it.
Oftentimes we get that kind of headache that creates that pain right behind the eye or that pressure. And so you may experience a little bit of that during this mobilization, because there's a nerve that runs through those little muscles in the back of the head and kind of wraps around the top part of the skull. If you like, you could do a couple little chin retractions if you need a little bit of added pressure in this area. So again, 2 fingers over the chin and just a light press into the balls that are placed underneath the back of your head. About 2 more breaths here.
I can stay here for like an hour.
And you can slowly lift the head and move them from underneath your neck.
And so you're going to grab your yoga block, and the yoga block is going to go about in the same position that the balls were just in, your occipital ridge, and the block is going to go on the medium height, and it's going to be at a slight angle. So as you can see, my block is on one of the ridges, and then the edge of the block, the opposite edge, is going to be at my occipital ridge, so that you're in that slight chin tuck position and really hanging on the occipital ridge. And this should feel really good. And you may it takes me, depending on what block I'm using, it kind of takes me a little bit of time to get it set up. And in this position, I find you can get a little bit more weight downward. And you can also lean the head a bit to one side and the other, rotating the chin slightly. If you have one side that seems to be a little bit more dominant than the other, everyone has a dominant eye, so the chances are that that one side might be a little bit more tense than the other. And When I do this one, it really gives me that referral pain pattern, which is from the occiput around to right above the eyebrows. So if your headaches tend to be kind of, like Matt was saying, deep in the eye or above the eyebrow region, it could be coming from these little muscles. You can tell by our faces how much we both like this one. We're like, drooling. So for any of these moves that we're doing, if you need more time than we're giving you, you pause the video and linger longer.
This is always a nice exercise to kind of end your day if you have a long work day, just to kind of restore some length back in that upper cervical region. Tends to be under a lot of compression throughout the day.
Take another about 5 rounds of breath. Making sure that the jaw, the throat is remaining relaxed. And you'll just very gently maybe support the head as you remove the block, setting it to the side of the mat. We're going to move back to using the balls, and we're just going to begin to work down. So you can stay on your back. I'm going to sit up. We're going to release our upper trapezius, which is at the base of the neck where the shoulders and the cervical spine meet.
So the ball's going to come kind of right in this upper trap region, which upper trap is a big fan muscle that comes down the spine and kind of comes across. So it's one part of the entire trapezius muscle, which is kind of this big trapezius or tripod or trapezoid, can't talk today, shaped muscle that is kind of spans the majority of the upper back. And so we have the upper portion here, and we'll come down and kind of hit parts of the middle portion and the lower portion as we go. The focus of the next exercise and tissue release is going to be getting this top portion where we tend to carry a lot of stress. So these muscles elevate the shoulders up towards the ears.
So on your back, you'll place the balls right in that region Matt was just showing. And if in this, as you have the balls at the trapezius, if letting the head drop back feels a bit unnatural for your neck, you can always use your block as a little pillow. Another use of the block that maybe will feel good for you is lifting the hips and putting it underneath the hips. And this is just going to apply more downward pressure into the balls. Just trying to keep the shoulders as relaxed as possible. And with myofascial release, there's not really a wrong way to do it. We like to avoid bony prominences and really sitting on nerves. But if you need to move around to kind of find a spot that feels good for you, please don't hesitate.
trying not to fall asleep in this position.
If all of a sudden we go really silent, you guys might know we've taken a brief nap. You might fall asleep while doing this.
And just making sure that we relax so we kind of hit some of those little sore spots or those tender areas. And I find myself where I tend to want to clench a little bit, and I constantly have to remind myself to take a deep breath and just kind of let my shoulders relax and kind of roll or melt over the two balls that are resting underneath my shoulders. So sometimes if you are using a lacrosse ball or something a little bit harder, if it's too intense, sometimes getting a tennis ball or a racquetball or something that's a little bit softer allows you to relax into this pose a little bit easier.
So we're going to continue moving down the spine, so following the trapezius as well as working a bit more into the rhomboids. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty simple. The balls will stay relatively in the same shape. You can do both together or one at a time. So we'll be showing one at a time. If your balls are taped together, don't worry about it.
So we're going to we'll start on the right side, and it's going to go, maybe we'll show them real quick where we're going to place the ball. So we're going to work down kind of the inside border of the shoulder blade. So as these muscles get tight and contracted, we want to start to release this tissue to allow them to settle back down and take some of the pressure off the neck. So we have the spine that runs down the middle. So if you kind of poke and feel, you feel that little bony ridge. And then we're kind of poke out to the outside where we see the inside border of the scapula. And what we want to do is we want to kind of stay right in between that region, and we're slowly going to work our way down through the rhomboid tissue, through the kind of the lower edge of the upper trap, the middle trap, and kind of getting down into that lower trapezius muscle group. So we'll do kind of a couple times down the left side and then down the right side as well. So we'll make our way back down on the ground. Takes a couple times to kind of get that ball right in the right place. And we'll kind of start just probably about an inch below where we were a second ago. But first, just kind of find that spot, take a couple deep breaths into it. And after you kind of get settled, we can start to initiate a little bit of arm range of motion. So if you want, we can bring that arm up overhead.
If it allows you.
And so what we're doing is we're kind of pinning down that muscle and that fascia, the thick connective tissue that surrounds the muscles, and we're mobilizing through it. So we're moving the joints and moving the bones in their normal plane of motion while creating space between the individual muscle groups and creating mobility or motion around that fascial tissue. So maybe do about 5 or so arm raises or even 5 or so breaths at each location, and then we'll move down about an inch or so.
I found it really fascinating. I recently went to a cadaver lab that it really seemed as though the muscles themselves aren't dysfunctional, but the fascia that surrounds each muscle gets bound together, and it causes muscles to not be able to perform their function properly. And so myofascial release work is so beneficial to the body and its ability to move smoothly. So we're hydrating that fascial layer between the muscles. So moving down about another inch.
Yep. Kind of resituate yourself. And again, avoiding those little bony areas, and then working that arm back as far as you can tolerate. And again, you can move that arm in different planes of motion. So our shoulder's not just moving in one plane all the time. If I'm going to go across my body, I may get a little different sensation and expose different parts of that muscle and fascial tissue. And if I go out to the side,
and making sure you're not working into a painful range of motion for you. And we're obviously working muscles that aren't traditionally thought of as neck muscles. Well, at least the rhomboids aren't, right? But the trapezius does attach to the cervical spine. And so as those muscles get bound together, they directly affect the neck's ability to function.
And there's a lot of crossover. I mean, a lot of the muscles that insert into the shoulder blade may not have a direct correlation, but muscles that attach to the shoulder blade that attach to the neck. So it's amazing how it's all kind of intertwined together and can create dysfunction. And you may even get some referral pain from the thoracic spine up to the neck, and that's not uncommon either. Kind of inch down a little bit more for our last little spot here on the right side.
I always love kind of sitting right at the scapula with my arm across my body, because there's so many muscles that kind of go underneath the scapula, and it's quite intense. As you do this kind of work more frequently, you'll learn your general tension patterns, and that way you know kind of where to begin and spend more time.
Another couple repetitions here. And we'll slowly, at your own pace, we'll kind of move that ball to the left side, and we'll start that process all over again.